Hey guys, welcome to the first lesson on this course. I'm going to teach you how to design a prop that we can later take to a 3D modelling artist and use it for a video game. In this lesson, we're going to create our magical book design after having done some brainstorming. Okay, open a new layer. This is where we're going to brainstorm. A brainstorm is when we make a lot of sketches of all the ideas that come into our head, however strange they might seem. Later, you can choose the ones that you find the most interesting. Our artboard should be horizontal and not vertical so we can see all the designs clearly. To do this, click on Image, rotate image 90 degrees. And now our artboard is horizontal. Next, let's select our brush. For this part, we're looking for a brush with a pencil-like stroke. To obtain this, I use number 36 and I make some adjustments. Here you can see the properties of my brush if you want to copy them. I modify the angle of the stroke like this. This way we achieve a stroke similar to a quill. But try others and choose what you find most comfortable. It's important that your brush has a low opacity so the stroke is greyish and not completely solid. We get the pencil effect if we apply all the properties I have and adjusting the texture properties of the brush to obtain some noise in the stroke. It's important to have a good sketch before adding details. At this stage you can correct any problems with the perspective and the volume, making sure everything is working well before we start more complex aspects of the design. Okay, start sketching the book. There are different ways of sketching objects. One of those, which is how I'll do it, is to first draw the basic geometric shapes of the object. Another trick is, if you know how to model in 3D, then make a quick sketch of your object in 3D. This way you already have the volume and the perspective done and you just need to copy. Finally, if you don't know how to draw your chosen object or you're struggling with its position or perspective, look for references online or copy a similar object you might have in your house. We're going to sketch lots of ideas while we're brainstorming, but we don't have to draw the base of the book so many times. Make your work as easy as possible for yourself. If you're drawing a book, copy the layer where you drew the base or the first sketch and duplicate it as many times as you like. This size is comfortable for drawing. Now, merge these layers to have one base and give it a name so you know what layer you're working on. Create a new layer where we'll draw the different designs of our book. References are very important. Sometimes we think we need to know how to draw everything from our imagination, but a good artist learns from nature, so you should always have references close by. Don't be afraid of basing yourself on photos or real models to create your designs. If you don't know how to start, I'll share a few tips with you that you might find useful whenever you're designing. The first and most important thing is to use references, as we said. Look at designs of real books or other people's drawings to see all the elements and details that you might otherwise miss. Another interesting way to start is by drawing simple geometric shapes. Play around with shapes and symmetry. Soon, you'll start to get some interesting shapes that you can add volume or details to. Remember though, everything you draw needs to be really defined because the 3D artist needs to understand the correct dimensions of each element. Right now we're only sketching, but anything that you can define in this stage will be less work later. Props are meant to tell a specific story. This could be the controls of a spacecraft, a hut belonging to a voodoo witch, or the interior of a bar where a blues band is playing. Every scene tells a story, whether it directly relates to the main story of the game or not. It doesn't matter if the player isn't going to interact with your object, but every detail matters, and it's the difference between an amateur and a professional. In the case of our book, we should think about who the book belongs to, what it contains, and where it is. If we weren't given that information, then we can imagine it ourselves. So now we don't have a scene, so we should try and give a story to each book we draw. For example, we could imagine the dungeon where a lonely sorcerer conjures dark spells, or the library of a mysterious wizard where our book is a portal to another realm. Other ideas could be books belonging to pirates, monsters, or merfolk. Any element you can add that brings your story to life is never too much, just use your imagination. Don't worry if you're not sure about some designs, later on you can select what you like best and discard what you don't want. Sometimes what we don't like at first can give us interesting ideas for our final design. If you've finished your designs but you want to do a few more, just create another layer and draw some new ones. It can be interesting to combine organic elements with artificial ones. Depending on your story, you might want to add some bones or tentacles to your book if it's about monsters, or maybe some gems or precious stones for something more classical. Just experiment and try different things. Now you have your sketches, choose the ones you like the best, or the elements in each sketch you like most. For this, you can create another layer and make notes in another colour, like red for example. You can also write on the side the elements you liked if that helps you. When you've made up your mind, place your sketches in a corner as a reference. Now you need to make new designs from these you just did. These new designs will have all the elements you found most interesting. So redraw the base of the book, or if you saved it, copy it onto a new layer. Now we can start to draw the new designs, combine and play around with the different elements that you liked. A trick that can help you save time and effort is to create layers for standard details that you can apply to different designs. In my case, I'll create some layers for the lock designs. This way I can design different kind of locks and then see which works best for each design. I've made new layers for the locks, but you might be more interested in another element. Just be sure to name each layer so you know what you have, otherwise you'll get lost and frustrated. Now I'll merge the base layers with the new designs and I'll arrange them on my artboard. We can see what we have and decide what we want to keep. I'll choose the locks that I think look best for each design. Remember to name each individual layer. If you need, create a new layer and highlight in red the designs you like best of this selection. When you decide on the one you want, separate it from the rest. Make a new group and save all the other designs inside. Then they won't get in your way. Lower the opacity of your sketch and create a new layer where you're going to define your drawing. When doing this, always keep the volumes in mind. This is your definitive drawing and the 3D artist needs to know exactly where all the elements of your book are. In the next lesson, we'll define the views with a blueprint, but right now it's important that your drawing makes sense. If this were an illustration, you could allow yourself some artistic license and leave some volumes unexplained. But as your design is going to be modelled, it needs to be more technical. If you don't quite know how to finish an element of the drawing, search through references until you find the solution. If the work is incomplete, the 3D artist will probably get a bit lost. This drawing will also be the base we'll use for the colour concept. The technique we'll use is quite realistic, so making sure the volumes are correct will also make the painting process easier. so your design is finished. This process is really fun and creative. Experiment with different objects and see what great results you can achieve. In the next lesson, we'll make a blueprint to prepare our drawing for the 3D artist. I hope you're enjoying the course so far. I'll see you in the next lesson.